welcome to this tutorial on views. What you can see on the screen here is what we're going to build during this tutorial, and what I'll do is I'll just run this for you. What you can see is a single view application with some text fields on here and also some labels as well, and I've predefined some data inside here. We're going to press the enter key. Well, first thing that's interesting, we'll press into one of these fields. When you press inside a text field, what happens is that the text field becomes known as the first responder, and that essentially means it's the thing which the keyboard, as you enter things from the keyboard, it will enter into the text field, and that's really all it means to become the first responder. If I move along the text fields, the first responder moves with it. One of the issues around, for example, just pressing return here on a keyboard is it doesn't actually dismiss the keyboard. So one of the things we're going to learn to do today is learn how we're going to dismiss the keyboard. So the only way we can do it in this application, this actually works on the enter key, and what we can see here is we've got a few things going on. We have a couple of new views actually. We've got this kind of lilac view on the background in which we've dropped another view, and as you can see we've used a nice roll down transition to do this. There's also some transparency on this view, and quite interestingly, as you can see, we've also got some shadow on this view. So what we're going to look at is we're going to look at a few things. We're going to look at how we create views using Interface Builder, how we create views programmatically, how we dismiss the keyboard, and how we can do some very nice effects with views, which includes, for example, doing this drop shadow and doing things like rotation and transparency and so on. Okay, we're going to get started. So what we have here is our project templates, and what we're going to pick for this tutorial is a single view application, like so. You can call it Views Tutorial, it's not a bad name. Have some kind of unique identifier. This will be your bundle. We are going to use automatic reference counting, as we probably will with most projects, but this instance we're not going to use a storyboard because I'm not planning on doing a kind of a navigation view, so we'll leave that. The device we will select to be the iPhone. Okay. Class prefix we'll leave as views example, that's fine for this particular thing, and click next, and then you just need to store it wherever it is you wish to store it. Okay, I'm happy with that location, so I'm going to just create it. Okay, so what we have here again is the our pre-created files for us, which is for a single view application. The main difference is because we haven't done a storyboard, is we get this zip file, which if we click on that, it will show us Interface Builder, and we see our single view and usual view of components down here. Of course, we get, as always, an application delegate, which contains our one and only window, and also a view controller. Okay, and as usual we have our delegate methods. Just quickly go through this. Here we have an allocation of the window, and here we allocate the view controller, and here we attach the root view controller's view to the main window, and that's pretty much all that happens at the moment inside the application delegate. So what we're going to do, just having a look at what we're building again, we'll switch back to our Interface Builder view, and we're going to lay down the components we need, which you can see are some text boxes, we need a button, UI button, and some labels here. There's quite a lot of space here, and you've got to bear in mind that our keyboard will pop up as soon as somebody clicks inside one of these text fields, so therefore you have to make room. There are techniques of rolling the view out of the way once the keyboard is detected, which is another way of doing this. So if this text area happened to be in this space around the keyboard, it will just roll up, and then as the keyboard dismissed, it will roll back down. Hopefully we'll have a look at that technique sometime later today. Okay, so let's first lay down our text boxes. Here we go. So we're just going to lay one somewhere near the top there. Okay, I'm just going to copy and paste these, that's fine. I'm going to do 3 of them and just lay these out like so, and likewise with some labels. Just going to paste them. I'm going to use the guidelines to help line them up. I'm going to justify these so they line up nicely with the text boxes. Now you can see the setting I'm using here is this part, which is called the attributes inspector. Okay, with that we can double click a label and you could say first name. You can see the advantage of right aligning now, because it means I don't have to keep moving my label about. And I'm going to call this one last name. Let me do that again. There it is. I'll just come back to that. I don't know why it's done that. And I'm going to call this. Might as well do student ID again. Just sort this one out. Okay, that's done. Finally, I would like to put down a button as well. Let's put got some strange character there. Okay, like so. Just to make things look reasonable, I'm going to just size my button to be roughly the same size as my text boxes. And I'm just going to give the button the title of Enter. Okay, so good idea always to save your work and then to run it. Okay, there it is. And so this is what we've got so far. So we're just making sure that when we enter into this text field, the keyboard will pop up. And there's enough space, it's not covering any of our view. Now, as you'll see, I can press return, I can press enter. I can't dismiss this keyboard as it is, so we need to sort that out. First of all, though, we are going to create our properties inside our code, which is going to be inside our header file of our view controller. So I'm going to click on this. We're going to try and sort this out so we can see our zip file at the same time. That's what I wanted. So if we use automatic, this usually just gives you a switch between the header file and the implementation file. So you're after something that looks like this. It doesn't matter if it's side by side. The main point is that you can see your view, and you can also see your header file where we want to create some properties. So we are going to create a property for 3 of these things. These labels are static, so we're not terribly interested in those. We'll just leave them as they are. But we do need to have a property for each of our text boxes. So what we have to do then is we press the Control key, so we hold that down, and then we simply drag into our interface, and there you go. Okay, so we're going to call this text box first name. Okay, now the reason I'm leaving text box in there, which is obviously telling me what the thing is because it makes, when you need to search for these using the dot method, it makes it so much easier. when you're looking for a text box, you can just start typing text box. It's much better than saying first name, last name, surname, which you are likely to forget. So as a tip, you can abbreviate that. You could have TB first name if that helps, or something shorter, but as long as it indicates to you that it's a text box. In this instance, we're happy with this kind of weak storage for this. It's not a problem. Okay, and we're done, and correspondingly we can check, but it will insert in our this file, the M file. You can see it's inserted a synthesize statement for us, which is great. So that's all finished and done. So likewise, we're going to do the same for each of these text boxes. So Control, and then we're going to drag into here. I'm going to call this text box L name. That's fine. And once again, I'll call this text box ID. And that's fine. Okay, so we're all done with the properties we need for the text boxes. What I'd also like to do is I need to wire an action from this button which is going to produce our new view. So even though we've not implemented the view yet, it's fine for us to put the button action down. So in this case, I'm going to switch over to my implementation file, and I'll do it somewhere, probably just below this. Give myself a bit of room in here. Below the memory did receive memory warning, so I'm going to control click from the button, and you can see it's telling me, do you want to insert an action? I do. I'm going to call this something like show details, which is going to show the details collected from the text boxes onto our new view. The touch up inside is the standard view, the standard event. This event allows a user to press the button but also take their finger off it if they want to cancel it. If you just do a touch down, that won't have that effect. That will actually, essentially, once they've touched it, you're done. So tend to use touch up inside for most proper button actions. The sender is absolutely fine. We don't really need it, so we can actually select this to be none in this case because we're not terribly interested in any arguments. I don't need to query the button because I've only got one of them. When I'm happy with that, I'm just going to connect that. If you press Command B, which is a shortcut, you can quickly build the project just to check you've got no problems. We're all fine. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to add another view. In this case, we are just going to pick a plain old view, which is this one. Okay, just need to make sure I've got the right one. There you go. So this is a view, it's a UI view. It's important to recognise this isn't actually a view controller, it's just a view. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab our view and we're going to actually drag it directly on top of this other view. We're going to size it to some sensible amount. So if you want to size it, the best thing to do obviously is to size accurately rather than guess. And what you would generally do when you're working with views, you'd work out all the dimensions you need in advance. So what we can do is if we click over here, we can show the size inspector, and I happen to know I want this to be 160 by 304, and I want the width to be 280 and this to be in fact 145. Okay, so that's pretty much where I want it. Okay, I think might move these buttons a bit further up. What you can do is I can just grab them, the whole lot, and just use the arrow keys just to give myself a bit more room in here. Okay. So that's just using this inspector here. These things here are called springs and struts, which actually are very useful for affecting the behaviour of your user interface elements, for example on rotation, but they'll be covered another time. Okay, if we just have a look at what we have here, then we have this new view which I can run, and we can have a look what we get. Okay, so we can see our new view has appeared here. It's not doing anything, it's just got its default white background on there, and that's it. If we have a look at the hierarchy, we can see that what we have on our view is our various things, text fields and so on, and we have this other view as well. So essentially what we can say is that all these views, including the text fields, labels and this button and this other view, are actually a subview of this main view here. Okay, so it's worth noting that virtually all the user interface elements in fact inherit from UIView, so each one of these is a view and therefore responds to the same methods that a view does as well. Okay, so that's on top of there. So what we're going to do now is we're going to put some of our labels directly on this view. Okay, now you can see this has been shown in this relationship again here, that this label is a subview on this view here, or another way around of saying is that this label's superview is this view, and this view's superview is this view, and so on. So that tends to be the language we use of superview. Okay, so I'm just going to grab that one over there, and I'll do the same thing of justifying these as well, and I'm going to call this one just the same as we've got above there. Actually, just going to say first name. So just going to move that bit. Then I'm going to copy these again. So essentially all we're doing is we're just taking the information that's from the text boxes above, and we're pushing it onto a new view here. So not a particularly useful thing, but it demonstrates a principle. So I'm just going to call that student ID again. Okay, that's fine. So finally we need some more labels which are going to give us these details. So we're going to just line these up and so on. So it's a bit like an address card, and make sure they're all nicely lined up. What I would generally do in this case is, obviously these are labels that we now do want to write to. I tend to just put 3 dots in there rather than leave them blank or leave the word label in there, and it's really just to tell me where they are. If I don't put any text in there, they disappear and they get difficult to find. You can locate them from here obviously, but it's just easier that they're in fact visible. Now these are some labels which we wish to change the value of. So what we're going to do first, we really need an outlet for these then, again in our header file. So we're going to do the same thing. We switch to our header file here and click and on here and drag. So that's control drag, drop it down, and again I'm going to start with the word label so I know what it is. I'm going to call this one fname, and we're done. Okay, second one, control drag, another one here. I'm going to call this label lname, like so, and then do my final one in here, label ID. Okay, that's great. And then actually all I really want to do for the first part of this tutorial is I want to simply take the value from these text fields and push it onto these labels here, and that will be triggered in fact by this button action. So that's what we're going to do. So if we switch over to our view controller, the implementation file, we should have already put in a show details IB action, which is if we just hover over here, we can see it's been triggered off this button enter. What you can do if you press one of your components, such as this UI button, and you'll notice there's another tab here which is called the Connections Inspector, and it just shows you what it's connected to. So I know that I have the touch up inside event, there's a list of events, is wired to the file's owner. Well, the file's owner is in fact, of course, the view controller here, and it's wired to an action called show details. So you can always use that inspector to see what's connected to what. Okay, so fairly straightforward so far, because we just need to say label. Let's start with the first name. Yeah, you can see now it's quite a good reason why I put label first, because I just start typing label and up it pops. Text equals again text box, so I'm going to go first name dot text. Okay, so that's nice and easy. Okay, can be a bit lazy and just copy this and then just change it. It's a very similar named, so that should be L name, and this one is just last, I think. Yeah, no, that's wrong. Okay, so we'll do this one. So I do text box, and it's L name. Okay, and finally do the ID. Textbox ID dot text. Okay, and we're done. So Command B will build that for us. Everything looks all right. We'll run it and see what we get. Okay, got these here. I won't do that normally. I think we'd probably make sure we got rid of those. But we're going to enter some name, last name, ID, and well, I don't know what's going on, because clearly the keyboard's in the way. So what we're going to do now, we're just going to stop this. We're going to look at how we dismiss the keyboard. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to actually create a separate action to do this. We could do it in here, but just for the sake of clarity, we're going to do it separately, and it can be quite useful to do this anyway. So we're going to hold down our control key, and we're going to drag from here and insert another action. That's fine, and we're going to call this one dismiss keyboard. Don't really need the argument here, not terribly important again, so we're going to connect that, and we have this one here. Okay. So what we need to do is we need to essentially resign the first responder, and that means dismiss the keyboard from one of these elements. Now, we don't actually know what the element is. It could be any one of these text fields, because the user could have been working any one of them when they click the enter. But what you can do is you can actually tell any of these UI elements to become the first responder, and it's easy to do. So what we're going to do is we're just going to pick on one of our text boxes. We'll do text box first name, like so, and then we're going to tell it to become the first responder, like so. Okay, so we send a message, become the first responder, to the text box, the first name. Now we know that's the one that's got the focus, if you like, and is responding to keyboard input. Then we're going to tell the same text box to resign the first responder, which means just just give up the keyboard, so the keyboard gets dismissed. Okay, so we're going to save and build that, and then we'll test our code. It seems odd, but you really just have to focus on any one of your elements and then dismiss it. There are other ways of programming the keyboard return itself to do the same trick, but we're just gonna do it this way. So let's run our code, and let's just do nothing at first. Okay, so we're just going to enter that, and there you go, that's working nicely. And you can see it should not matter which of these I'm in, the enter key will always dismiss the keyboard. So we can now test this. Okay, not too pretty, but that's working fine. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're just going to look at one of the features, one of the delegate methods that exists in the UIView controller, just to pre-enter some of these fields, so something's filled in when the user starts the application. So let's just stop this. Okay, so main reason for doing this is just to show how one of these lifecycle delegate methods work. So this is the one we would often do some work in if we wanted to configure the view after the view itself has loaded, and the method's called void viewDidLoad. There's a super viewDidLoad, which we don't do anything above that. That has to be allowed to be loaded without any other code in between. But if we want to then change some aspects of the view, we can do it here. So what we're going to do is we're just going to set the text box, the first name, just to fill it in with something. Okay, remember that you must use these @ signs in front of strings, which the compiler will then type to be a NS string. Do the ID. Okay, so now if we build this, we can see we've once the view's loaded, it's then pre-configured these fields. If we press enter, obviously it'll push these into here as well. Okay. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to try and manipulate this view further. But now we'd like to be able to do something actually with the view itself programmatically, and one of the things we're looking at doing is making a page curl effect. So the view isn't instantly on. No, it's in fact already on, because it's put on when the thing begins. It's already added to its super view. We'd actually like to produce a transition, for example. To do that, we need to have a handle to the view. In other words, we need to create a property of the view. So just like we did with all the other things, of the text boxes and labels, we're going to drag from the view itself, and be careful obviously not to click on anything on the view, the actual view here, and you can see it's a type UIView. Storage is okay. We're going to give it a similar name, give it a name such as display view, which makes sense. Again, if you want to be accurate with your naming, you could start with the words view. You tend to have not so many views, but you may have lots of views in fact, so still worth sticking to this convention of beginning the name of your outlets or your properties with the name of the thing itself, in this case a view. Okay, that's great. So there you go, we have our property for our view itself. So one thing we can immediately try to do, and we could do this in the view did load, for example, is we could, for example, hide our view. So let's do self, which is now referring to the view controller. I can press escape if I want a list of things. I know it's a view, so I'm going to start with the word view. I've got, the first thing it takes me to is view, and this is in fact the main view, the grey area that you can see at the moment. So every view controller owns a view by default. So I don't want that one, so I'm just going to do this again. I actually want the view that's I've got a property of, which is this view display, like so. And I can just put another dot down, and you will find that there is a property. That's what the P means here. If you look at this, P meaning property, that's Boolean, and it's called hidden. Okay, and because it's Boolean, I know I simply need to set it to either yes or no. So this should be self view display hidden yes. Okay, so let's run this. Okay, and as we can see, our view has disappeared. Even if we press the enter button, it doesn't magically appear again, because although it is there, it's attached to its super view. It is in fact hidden. It's an interesting distinction actually. It is actually there, but it is hidden. That's very different to being removed from your super view. Okay, so we're just going to stop that. Okay, what we want to do now is, going back to the original example, we'd like to do a transition on this view to produce a page curl. So we're going to do this in our show details, because we'd actually like this to happen when the button gets pressed. So this is this code here. Okay. Right, well, the first thing we need to do is to begin the animations. So we say UIView, okay, and begin animations. You can see here. We'll just put nil here for now, and the context is null. This is usually the way it's set up. Okay, and this is signaling that there's going to be some animation on this view. And then next line is we set the animation duration. Okay, it's worth investigating these. Clearly there's curve, delay, all sorts of different things. So you can do a very similar thing you can actually do in Flash when you set up animations, either in code there or on a timeline. It's not hugely different. So I'm just going to set up the animation duration, which is here. Okay, this is expecting an NS time interval. That's actually an integer, so sorry, it's just a float. So we can. I'm just going to do 1 second in here, so like so. Okay. Now we need to tell it, well, we're setting up an animation, it's going to last 1 second, what type of animation is it going to be? So obviously these are predefined animations that have been provided for us. So again, we're calling on the UIView class method, in fact. Okay, and we want set animation transition, which I can't see just yet. There it is. Okay, there you go. So set animation transition. Well, what sort of transitions are there? Well, the one I want is called a UI animation transition curl down in this case. So if I say UI, you can see it actually gives you a list of types of transitions. So I'm going to do UI view and animation, transition, and then finally it gives me the ones that I can do. So I've got curl down, curl up, flip from left, flip from right. Oh, no transition at all. The one I want is in fact curl down. Okay, let's go to the next bit. Next part of the method is for view, and the view I want is self dot view details, which I can't view display. Sorry, that's the one. Okay, and do we want to cache it? I'm just going to say yes. That's improves your performance, and we are done. Okay. Finally, what I need to do is commit the transitions themselves. But to do this, I actually have to remove the view from the super view and then put it back. So we'll just try this first. So in the meantime, we are going to just change this to be no. Like so. Okay, let's run this and see what we get. Okay, the first problem I've got is I can still see this view. So there's some things I could have done. I could have hidden it and shown it, and so on. But as we press the enter, we do get the transition, and that's all working okay as it was. But I'm not happy with that view being there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove it, which is good to see. And then I'm going to show you how you add a view then to its super view. Okay, we'll just stop this. Okay, so we're just going to come here. It doesn't really matter where you do this, as long as it's before you commit the animations. So to remove a view, from its super view, we need to say self, and then choose the view display. Okay. Then there is a method on that which is to remove, ROM, and you can see we get a method called remove from super view. Okay, like so. We can run this to see if it will work. It should have at least removed the view for us. Not yet. Okay, there you go. No, that's gone now. So that's still not working as in terms of our transitions, obviously not, because the view no longer is on its super view. Okay, so finally what we're going to do is we're just going to put the view back here, which is UIView view. And then what we want is to select the, so I'll start again, self dot view display, and then we need to add, let me start again, that's not right. What you need to do here, of course, is you're adding the subview to its super view, and the super view, of course, is the view controller's view. So let me just start that line again. So we have self view, which refers to the view on the view controller, and we then add the super view, add the subview, which is there, and the subview is called self. Oh, we could actually just use view details, so view display here. Right, let's just go over that line. Okay, so self, add view, view display. So on one line we're removing it, which is this self view display, which is the view that needs to be removed from its super view, and then to add a view on, we have the view added to its own super view. Okay, so what we're going to do just to finally tidy this up is we are going to set the default view of this as hidden. So this will only happen when it's been instantiated from the zip file. So this is a good place to set it, so we're just going to do that, and finally we're going to run it. Let me just stop the simulator on there. Let me just sort that out. Okay, as you can see, when we started this, we still had this view, even though we're setting it as hidden here. And the reason is I changed this line of code, which is overriding the built condition on view did load. I'm saying self-display hidden no, which of course is going to show it. So what we're going to do is just comment out that line and try again. That's better, and there we go. Bit strange, we'll have to fix that. Okay, so I've fixed that. One of the reasons was that we hid the view initially, so the user didn't see it on load in interface builder, but of course we needed to change that to make sure it could be seen. So we just need a line of code in our show details, which is self view display dot hidden equals no, and all the rest of the code stays the same. So now when we run it, we have our correct behavior now. So I'll press enter, and there we get nice roll down of the view. Okay, so the thing we'd like to do now is I'd like to show you how to programmatically add another view. In this case, we're just going to use a view that's going to sit behind this card that rolls down, just to give it a nice effect. So let's do that next. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to we want another view which we're going to create programmatically, and I would prefer this to be just a private property to this class, so I don't really want to declare this in the header. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a private interface inside this file here. So to do these, we start with interface, and the class name is going to be the same name, which is views example view controller. So it should look like the input above, and in this case, because it's a private interface, I terminate it with here. Don't need this, I'm not inheriting. And I don't want that, but I do need an end, and that should stop. Just get rid of these. Got too much stuff given to me. That's better. Okay, so that should we can build this to make sure we've got no problems with the syntax. So this, because we're using this these brackets here, and it's in the implementation file, as we can see here, means that it's a private interface. So there's no public access to other objects that own this class. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a view. I'm going to create a property. In this case, I'm going to make it non-atomic strong. Okay. And yeah, I want a UI view. Don't forget to put in the pointer, and I'm just going to call this back view. Okay. Incidentally, the star can be here on there, or you can actually, if you prefer, have it on the instance name as well. Okay. And we're done there. Now I need a synthesize for this. Now, as you can see, the default synthesize that's given to me does not use the equals underscore that is being recommended. Doesn't matter in this case, but bear in mind that it may cause you problems. So ideally, you should change the name of the instance variable to that, to keep in line with good programming practice. In fact, this application's been tested before, so I know it doesn't cause a problem, but just in case, you can do that. Okay, so what we're going to do is we want to create this back view, and we're going to do it after this animation transition, and we're just going to draw it behind it. Okay, so what we're going to do then is we are going to, inside show details, we'll do it after this bit here, is we're going to do a lazy instantiation of our back view. Now remember that just because I've set a property in a synthesize of this object, which this object, which is a UI view called back view, it doesn't mean that it's been initialized. So effectively, there's been no new applied to it. It isn't yet an instance of an object. It just simply has some memory allocated to it. So a style in iOS is to often do what we call sort of lazy instantiation. So when you need to instantiate it. So I can do something like let me just come on my view, back view. Okay, so if not back view, which is just really saying are you nil, then what I want to do is actually instantiate it here. So what we're going to do is back view. Okay. Equals a UI view, alloc, and init. Okay. At this point in time, I'm not going to initialize it with a frame, though I could do, and it's mainly because I want to show you how to make a rectangle for the frame to sit inside. What's this? Yep, I did mean that. That's a good point. That's because I've used that underscore. I need to use it here. That's why it's complaining. Okay, so that's fine. So what this will do is, if back view has not yet been allocated and initialized, then it will do so for me. If not, it'll just skip the if statement. Okay, so now we've got our view, and I need to put it inside a frame. Okay, you always need to do this. Views have to live in a frame somewhere. So I can do this by using this convenience method, which is called Core Graphics Rectangle Make. CGREC stands for Core Graphics Rectangle. I'll call it frame equals CG. There you can see it's rect make, and then this takes an argument of technically they're core graphic floats, but ordinary floats will do fine here. So I know what I want the size for this, so I'm going to do 10.0. To move along to the next field here, if you press the tab key, it'll just move along for you. 220.0 is the next one, and then 300.0. If you put integers here, it won't matter because they'll be automatically typed. But it's good practice when you're working with graphics is to use the correct typing. So if you're asked for a float, it's always a good idea to give it a float. It will not cause problem here, but it certainly can cause problems when you're working with OpenGL, for example. Okay, now I've got this frame. It's just saying, well, you're not using it, so we're going to make use of it now, and we are going to do back view dot frame, sorry, and make that equal to frame. Okay, like so. Okay, nearly there. So we've allocated it. We created this here as a property. We've allocated it if required, and then we've created a frame for it. And also we're going to do something else as well, because we actually want to give it some alpha, because if we don't give it some alpha, any transparency, then we'd have to push it down in the Z order, if you like. So we'd have to put it below the other one and lay the other one on top. But for this instance, we're getting a nice effect by just producing some alpha for it, so some transparency. So we can actually, alpha is a property of all views to set the transparency, so it sets the alpha channel. I'm going to set this up to be 0.3. The other thing I want to do is I want to change the colour of it. Again, this is another property called background colour. Because we're in UIKit, there's a nice convenience method for setting colours, which is called UI colour, and I'm going to set that to be blue colour in this instance. Okay, it's nearly done there now. So we've created it, we've set the frame for it, we've changed its alpha, we've changed the background colour of it, and what we're going to do now is we're going to add it to its super view, which in that case is the view controller's view. So we have self view, which will return the view, and then we want to add sub view to that, and just the name of the view we want to add, which is back view in this case. Yep, looks okay. Just build that. Okay, and finally we'll run it and see what it looks like. Okay, so again we have no views visible till we press the enter key, and there we have it. So we have this back view just drawn initially, as you can see, and then the other view, which has got the details on it, is rolled down on top of it. So obviously to spot there's some transparency on here, because we can see the display underneath it. There is a way of detecting which is what's the order of these views, which obviously you need to know, because it's quite common that you'd have a layer of views and you may want to pop one off and push one to the top and so on. But for now we'll just continue with our exercise. So we're quite happy with that. You might want to modify the back colour. Usually it's a nice idea to give it sort of opposite colours, so the opposite of this sort of purple, this sort of bluey purpley thing, is probably around an orange and yellow, just to make it look a bit more interesting if you wish to do that. And then finally we're going to look at some more advanced techniques by looking at layers that will enable us to do more interesting things with the view. Okay, kind of happy with that colour. What we're going to do now then is we'd like to do something interesting, like add the shadow effect that we saw on the original demonstration. Okay, to do this, what we're going to do is we're going to use a class which is called CA layer, and it's a model class for layer tree objects, and essentially we can use it to it encapsulates the position, the size, also the transform of a layer, which also defines its coordinate system as well. So it's a place where we can do the sort of things that you might do on objects or models in OpenGL, for example. We can transform and translate and rotate. But in our case, we're going to do some predefined animation features, so graphic features of this layer by doing some work with shadows. So let's have a look at how we get this. Okay, what I'm going to do is, just before we commit the animations, I'm just going to give myself a bit of room here and put a comment in. So here we're going to use the CA layer or CA model to create a shadow. Okay, so how do we get a context to this layer? Well, actually it's on the view itself. So if we do self dot view display dot layer, and that's how we get it. You can see that it's type to CA layer. We could, if we wish to, created an instance of CA layer and made it equal to this, which may be a little bit better because you don't have to keep typing self.viewDisplay layer each time. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to change a property which is mask to bounds, which will help us. Okay, the first thing you'll notice is it's going to complain about this, and it's basically saying I can't be found in a forward class object CA layer. So it's got a problem, doesn't quite know what it's doing, and the reason is to make use of this we actually need to add a framework. So this will be a useful exercise. So if we click onto our project tab here, right at the top, then we get our information view. And what we're looking for is we're looking to add a new framework. In fact, you can do it here. You can do it in the build phases also, but you can do it here in the summary. At the moment, we know we've got UIKit, Foundation, and Core Graphics, but we need another one, which is called Quartz. I don't know why it's so hard to find these. They appear, then disappear. There you go. Okay, so if you start typing Quartz, it gives you the iOS 5 folder, and you should see the framework here, and it's called Quartz Core, and we need this if you want to do this kind of 2D graphics. So we're going to just add that, and that's fine. Not quite there yet. So coming back to our view controller, okay, which is here, you'll see you've still got a problem, and that's essentially because we still need to import it as well. And so the line we need is in our header file, which is here, is to import Quartz Core, quartzcore.h, and with a bit of luck that should have sorted out our problem. Yeah, so I've just got a typo now, so that's fine. Okay, and that's fixed that for me. Right, that's great. So we're going to continue with this. Obviously, unfortunately, in this tutorial we haven't got time to go through everything you can do with this, so you'll just have to have a look at the documentation. But anyway, to produce a shadow, what we need to do on the layer is use the commands for doing just this actually. So we have a shadow offset. So this is nice because in fact I think up to before iOS 5 you couldn't really do this so easily. You would have just have to have done this all yourself. I'm going to make that equal to it's actually a CG size make. We're going to do I'll do minus 15.0 and 20. Obviously feel free to experiment with these, and that's something you should do once you've completed the tutorial, is to in fact experiment with all these values. Make sure you can see how they work. Self.view display on the layer, and then I'm going to set the shadow radius. Okay, we'll do this to be equal to about 5 in there. Okay, and then we'll set the shadow opacity as well. So that's as it sounds. So it's effectively a bit like an alpha on the shadow, so it's not too solid. Okay, shadow opacity. Okay, you can also, as you can see there, there's you can set the shadow color if you wish to, but to do that you need to make this equal to a CG color ref, which is a fairly complex method. So we're just going to leave it the default shadow color, which is black at the moment. So sorry, that's not what I wanted. I wanted the opacity, which is there, and we'll make it half, like so. And okay, just what we'll do is we'll save it, build it, and everything's fine. So we'll give this a go. Okay, in the meantime I've just modified the colour of this. It's just a little too dark for having a shadow on it. So if you're going to use dark shadows, obviously you need to have a fairly light background. But let's run this. Okay, and press enter. As you can see, we get our programmatic view, and then it drops with a transition, this roll transition, our other view, which has the shadow on. And as you can see, it's a fairly good effect actually on that. And so what I recommend you do, that's the end of the tutorial. What I recommend you do is experiment, try adding, particularly try adding another programmatic view on here, on this region. Experiment with this shadow as well. You can experiment with that, and also you could add some more fields on here as well, and just essentially play around with this application as it is, to familiarize yourself with adding views through the interface builder, adding programmatic views, get some practice at removing views from their super view and then adding views back to their super view. Okay, that's the end of this tutorial on views.